Picture this. A noblewoman stands trembling in shabby garments. Wedding guests whisper behind gloved hands. Her parents have just disposed of her. Like unwanted property. Married her off to a lowly farmer. You see her tear-streaked face. The humiliation burning in her eyes. But wait. Freeze that moment right there. Because of this story, it's not what you think. Stay with me. Because what happens next will shatter every assumption you have about love. I'm talking about a transformation so beautiful, it'll give you actual chills. Hit that like button if you've ever been underestimated. Because this story, it's for you. So let's rewind and discover who she really is inside. Lady Isabella Whitmore. That's her name. Born into nobility, but treated like a burden. Why? Because she doesn't fit their mold of perfection. Her crime? Being fuller figured in a world that worships thinness. Having a spirit too wild for their cages. Speaking when she should stay silent. And him, the farmer standing quietly in the background. Thomas Brennan, dismissed as just a peasant by everyone who matters. But watch his eyes, see how he looks at her. Not with pity, not with disgust, but with something startling. Gentleness. Like he sees something no one else does. She deserves so much more, he thinks. And you know what? He's right. But here's what breaks my heart. She doesn't believe it yet. 5 years of shame have convinced her she's unworthy. Unlovable. A burden to be passed along. And Thomas? He's carrying his own wound. Once dismissed as having nothing to offer the woman he loved. She died, thinking he wasn't enough. So picture this moment. Two broken people, both starving for the same thing. To be seen, to be valued, to matter. What would you do if your own family discarded you? Comment below, 'cause I see every response. Now watch, as her small hand trembles. The wedding vows echo like a death sentence. But then, something unexpected happens. His calloused hand gently steadies hers. Not possessive, not claiming, just support. And for one heartbeat, she feels something she's never experienced. Safety. But someone else is watching this moment. Someone who profits from their pain. Someone who'll stop at nothing to destroy what's growing between them. The mystery deepens, because one secret connects them, and no one sees it yet. What happens that night will break your heart in the most beautiful way. Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Then you'll understand why she whispered. Echoes in your soul. Please, she breathes into the darkness. Someone see me. And here's what gives me chills. He's about to do exactly that. But the path to love, it's going to test everything they think they know about themselves. Are you ready to watch two people discover who they're meant to be? Because the transformation starts right now. Subscribe if stories about becoming your best self fill your heart. Because beautiful souls like you understand that growth is messy and worth it. The letter she burns every night contains her real name. The strength she's hiding will amaze you. And his capacity for love, deeper than even he knows. One secret will shatter everything. One choice will save them both. Stay, because you won't believe what she finds the strength to do. Let me take you inside Isabella's world and show you why this woman is about to become your hero. Picture the Whitmore estate, where beauty isn't just valued, it's currency. And Isabella? She's been declared bankrupt. Every morning, her sisters glide past mirrors like swans. Slim, graceful, perfect, while Isabella watches from the shadows, learning to make herself small. But here's what I love about her. She never stops fighting. Not completely. Watch this. Late at night, when everyone sleeps, she performs a ritual. Burning letters. One by one, feeding flames with her secret dreams. Why? Because someone once wrote to her, made her feel beautiful, cherished, worthy, and she can't bear to read those lies anymore. Haven't we all worn masks just to survive another day? Comment if you've ever felt invisible in a crowd, because Isabella's about to teach us something about courage. See her hiding a portrait where she looked joyful once, before the world told her joy wasn't hers to keep. But watch closely, because defensive walls are built around tender hearts. Her sharp tongue? It's armor, protection for dreams too fragile for daylight. I am more than this, aren't I? She whispers to her reflection. And you know what? She is. She just doesn't know it yet. Here's what breaks me. She's been taught that love is earned through perfection, that worthiness has a dress size, that belonging requires transformation into someone else. But watch this moment. A servant drops a tray, dishes shatter. Everyone expects punishment. Isabella? She helps gather the pieces, offers comfort instead of criticism. That kindness, it's who she really is, beneath the pain. Her wound runs deep, unwanted, unloved, starved of true affection. But here's what's beautiful. Wounds can become gateways to wisdom. Can you imagine being laughed out of your own home? Because that's her reality. Every family gathering, a reminder of her inadequacy. But she's learned something powerful, how to protect others from the same pain. That servant, she sees herself in that fear, and chooses compassion. The letters she burns, they're signed TB, someone who saw her beauty when she couldn't, someone who made her believe, for just a moment, that she was enough. But believing fairy tales hurt too much, so she burns them. Every single night. Why did I ever think, she whispers, feeding another letter to flames. Why did I let myself hope? But here's what gives me chills. Hope is like fire. You think you've extinguished it, but one spark can reignite everything. Her biggest fear, that she was never enough, never worthy of the love she craves. But what if the person who wrote those letters was closer than she thinks? What if the love she's burning is about to walk back into her life? She controls what she can, choosing which memories to keep and which to destroy. It's her only power in a powerless world. But power, real power, it's coming. In the form of someone who sees, not her flaws, but her strength. Watch her in the mirror, tracing lines of a face the world calls plain. But you know what I see? Character, depths, beauty that goes soul deep. She's practicing, being invisible, because it's safer than risking rejection. But invisibility is about to become impossible. Hit like if you believe people can be beautiful in ways the world doesn't measure. Because this woman is about to prove it. The embroidered gowns that bind her waist, they are metaphors for everything constraining her spirit. But those constraints, they're about to snap. Her parents control her future, treating daughters like business transactions. It's the world she knows. But it's not the world she's going to accept. That portrait she hides shows a woman laughing freely. No shame, no apology, just joy. And that woman, she's still in there, waiting. The real Isabella, she's been buried under expectations, suffocated by standards. But she's not dead. She's dormant, and dormant things can bloom when given the right conditions. Someone is about to provide those conditions. Someone who sees her worth when she can't see it herself. The letters burning in the fireplace, they're not just paper, they're pieces of her heart. But hearts, they're remarkably good at healing, especially when they find their missing piece. Are you ready to watch her discover who she really is? Because the woman she's about to become will inspire you to believe in your own transformation. Next, meet the man who's going to help her remember her worth. Now let me introduce you to the most surprising man you'll ever meet. Thomas Brennan. By daylight, he's everything a leader should be. Strong, respected, the kind of man villagers trust with their problem. But you think you know powerful men. This one will completely surprise you. Because at midnight, when the world sleeps, Thomas becomes someone else entirely. Follow him now, through moonlit paths. Watch him kneel beside a weathered gravestone. Listen as he speaks words that shatter everything you thought. Margaret, I failed you. I had nothing to offer, and now you're gone. His wife, lost 5 years ago. Not to disease, but to despair. Because society convinced her that loving a peasant meant living without worth. She chose death over a life deemed worthless by nobles. And Thomas, he's been carrying that guilt like stones in his chest. But here's what moves me. Watch him with the village children. See how his eyes light up, how naturally kindness flows from him. That's not a pretense. That's his true heart. The part of grief hasn't touched. Give me someone to protect again, he whispers to the stars. And you know what? The universe is about to answer. During the day, he masks his pain behind competence. Make decisions. Solves problems. Earns respect through deeds, not birthright. But what drives a man to such extremes? Drop your theory below, because his motivation runs deeper than survival. He's fighting, not just for his land, but for the radical idea that worth isn't determined by bloodline. Every crop he grows, every problem he solves, it's proof that peasants can be noble. That character matters more than titles. But late at night, the mask crumbles, and we see the truth. He's terrified of loving again, of failing another woman he cherishes, of proving his father right, that peasants can't win love. His secret wound, once pledged service to a noble family, and they betrayed him, humiliated him, convinced Margaret she was foolish for choosing him. Watch him tend his fields, with hands that could have held swords in different circumstances. He chose earth over warfare, growth over conquest. That choice, it speaks to who he is inside. But here's what breaks my heart. He's convinced he has nothing to offer, that love requires more than he can give. What he doesn't realize is that the capacity to love is the rarest wealth of all. Every midnight visit to Margaret's grave, it's not just mourning, it's preparation. He's learning to forgive himself for being human. I should have fought harder, he tells the headstone. Should have made them see your worth. But fighting isn't always about swords. Sometimes it's about choosing love, despite the cost. His debt to Margaret's family, it intersects with Isabella's story in ways that will shock you. Because the noble family who broke his heart, it's hers. But he doesn't know. Not yet. Doesn't realize that fate is weaving their pain into purpose. Watch him laugh with the baker's son, teach a young girl to read, defend an old man's land rights. This isn't performance. This is character. He's learned something beautiful, that power used to protect others is the only power worth having. But his greatest fear, risking his heart again, opening himself to loss, choosing vulnerability over safety. The village respects him, but nobles see him as furniture, useful, ignorant, invisible, yet he carries himself with dignity they can't diminish. Why? Because his worth isn't their decision to make. Here's what gives me chills. He's about to meet someone who needs exactly what he offers. Safety, respect, the radical notion that she's in. His duality fascinates me. Confident mask during the day, quietly broken at night. But broken things can heal stronger. And healing is about to begin. That prayer he whispers, give me someone to protect again. It's about to be answered in the most unexpected way. The woman approaching his life, she carries wounds that match his own, shame that mirrors his guilt, dreams deferred by society's cruelty. But together, they're about to prove that love doesn't require perfection, just courage. His hands, calloused from honest work, they're about to offer something noble hands never could. Genuine tenderness, earned through suffering. The debt his family owes, it's not gold, it's justice. Recognition, the right to love, without apology. And he's about to claim it, through the most powerful act of all, choosing someone society rejects, and seeing her clearly. Are you ready to watch a man discover that his heart is braver than his shame? Because what happens when he meets her will restore your faith in love itself. Next, the moment that changes everything. Have you ever felt time stop, like the universe held its breath, just for you? Because that's about to happen, to two people who desperately need it. Picture the village square, bustling with morning energy. Bread stalls, guild flags fluttering, the comfortable chaos of ordinary life. Isabella walks carefully, still learning to navigate cobblestones in simpler shoes. No longer the gliding grace of nobility, but something more real, more grounded. Thomas moves through the crowd, familiar and respected, stopping to help, share news, be present, in ways nobles never learn. But someone else is watching, hidden behind a merchant's stall, calculating. Wait, now watch, as fate orchestrates poetry. Isabella reaches for a fallen apple, just as Thomas bends to retrieve it. Their hands brush, she stumbles backward, startled by unexpected contact, and he catches her. Time stops. Not the romantic nonsense of fairy tales, but something deeper. Recognition, like souls, calling to each other across impossible distances. She looks up, he looks down, and both see the truth. In her eyes, he sees strength disguised as shame, kindness buried under hurt, beauty that has nothing to do with mirrors. In his eyes, she sees something she's never experienced. Respect, not for her bloodline, but for her essence. The person she is, beneath the pain. Are you hurt? He asks. And his voice, it's gentle in ways that surprise them both. No, she whispers. But they both know that's not entirely true. She's been hurt for years, just not by this fall. Their hands, still touching. His callousness, hers soft but trembling. And in that contact, something shifts. Some ancient recognition. Awaken. I know you, she breathes. Not his face, but his kindness. The way he sees her, like she matters. And I know you, he responds. Not her reputation, but her heart. The courage it takes to keep hoping, despite everything. The crowd moves around them, but they're suspended in stillness, processing a connection that defies explanation. She feels truly seen for the first time in her life, not judged, not measured, just acknowledged, as if her existence brings him joy. He senses destiny standing before him, not the dramatic kind poets write about, but the quiet kind that heals. Someone who could anchor him to hope again. But someone else sees everything. Lady Margaret Whitmore, Isabella's sister. Beautiful, beloved, cruel in ways that masquerade as concern. How interesting, she murmurs to her companion. My dear sister, making friends. The venom in her voice could poison wells, because Margaret, she can't bear that Isabella might find happiness, that the defective daughter might discover worth. Back to our couple, still frozen in recognition. Thank you, Isabella whispers. But she's not thanking him for catching her fall. She's thanking him for catching her gaze, for holding it, for not looking away in embarrassment. No shame, he murmurs. And somehow, she knows he means it. Only strength. Those 3 words, they crack something open in her chest. Something that's been locked for years. Only strength. Not despite her body, but because of her spirit. Not in spite of her struggles, but through them. His hand releases hers. Slowly, reluctantly, like letting go costs something. And it does, because they both feel it. The rightness of that connection. The way her trembling steadied under his she begins. But what should I do? Return to invisibility? Pretend this moment never happened? Yes, he agrees. We both should, but neither moves. Because should and want are different countries entirely. The apple still lies forgotten on the cobblestones. A small red reminder that sometimes we fall just so someone can catch us. Your name? He asks. Though he knows her title, he wants her truth. Isabella, she whispers. Not Lady, not Whitmore, just Isabella. Thomas, he responds. Not a peasant, not a farmer, just Thomas. And in that exchange, they become simply themselves. The crowd presses closer, curious about the stillness. But Thomas creates space around them, not with authority, but with presence. Walk with me, he asks. Not commanding, requesting, offering choice, where she's rarely had it. She nods, because saying yes to kindness feels like revolution. As they move together, slowly, carefully, neither notices the figure following. The sister whose envy burns like acid. But we notice, and we worry because happiness is fragile, needs protection. Their steps fall into rhythm, naturally, like they've walked together for years instead of moments. The village suits you, he observes. Not criticism of her former life, but celebration of her present. It feels, she searches for words. Real, not performed, not evaluated, just lived. And for the first time, she can breathe fully, but breathing freely in a world that demands suffocation. It's dangerous. Someone profits from their separate pain. Someone who'll stop at nothing to keep them broken. But right now, at this moment, they're not broken. They're not separate. They're 2 people, discovering that being seen is worth every risk. Have you felt instant recognition? Tell me your story in the comments, because connections like this, they're rare as unicorn, but they're about to learn that rare doesn't mean impossible, and impossible doesn't mean not worth fighting for. What they don't know is that this meeting will ripple into scandal, that their stare threatens the safety each struggles to maintain. But sometimes, safety is overrated. Sometimes, being truly alive requires choosing connection over protection. Are you ready to watch love grow in the most unexpected soil? Because what happens next will show you that transformation begins with a single moment of truth. So here's where it gets beautiful and terrifying. Isabella begins her new life in Thomas's modest home. No tapestries, no servants, just dignity. The kind that comes from choosing a substance over Watch her, learning to knead bread with hands that once only held embroidery. See her face as she discovers satisfaction in work, in contributing, in mattering, through action instead of bloodline. I never knew, she whispers, flour dusting her cheeks, that creating something could feel like this. And Thomas? He's watching too, seeing her bloom like flowers given proper soil. But gossip, it travels faster than kindness. A noble with a peasant? Unthinkable. The whispers start in market squares, spread through taverns, poison every conversation. She's lost her mind, they say. He's bewitched her. Because society. I can't imagine love crossing class lines. Can't believe that worth might exist outside their narrow definitions. But what breaks my heart is how their judgment wounds her, how she starts second-guessing her joy. Maybe they're right, she tells Thomas one evening. Maybe I don't belong here. And you know what he does? He doesn't argue, doesn't dismiss her fears. He shows her who she's becoming. Look, he says, pointing to bread cooling on the windowsill. You made that with your hands, your effort, your care. Then he gestures to the garden where she's been learning to tend herbs. You saved those plants when I was ready to give up. Your patience brought them back. Finally, he touches her hand, gently, reverently. You belong wherever your heart finds peace. And if that's here, then here is where you stay. Are you crying? Because I am. Watching someone learn to see their own worth through loving eyes. But just when she starts to trust, the gossip turns dangerous. Margaret arrives with reinforcements. Noble ladies, influential men, all armed with social poison. Isabella, darling, Margaret's voice drips with false concern. Surely you see, how does this look? The implication that loving Thomas diminishes her. Choosing happiness over status is madness. But watch Isabella's face. As something shifts inside her, something new, something fierce. What does it look like? She asks, and her voice, it's steady, strong. This performance, Margaret gestures dismissively. Playing peasants. It's beneath you. And that's when Isabella surprises everyone, including herself. No, she says, quiet but unmovable. What's beneath me is pretending love doesn't matter. The gasp from the noble ladies could shatter crystals. Because Isabella just chose truth over approval, growth over safety, love over everything else. But Margaret, she's not finished. She's been saving the cruelest weapon of all. Tell me, sister dear, do you know about his letters? The words hit like arrows. Precise, poisoned, designed to kill what's growing between them. Thomas goes rigid, because he knows what's coming. The secret he's been protecting, about to be weaponized. What letters? Isabella's voice, barely a whisper. Then Margaret smiles, with the satisfaction of a predator, about to strike. But Thomas? He makes a choice. The brave choice. The one that risks everything. The letters, he says, stepping forward, are mine. The silence. You could drown in it. What? Isabella breathes. I wrote to you, Thomas continues, his voice breaking with honesty. Years ago, under another name. T.B. Thomas, Brennan. The letters she burned night after night. The words that made her feel beautiful, cherished, worthy. They were his. All along, her world tilts sideways. Everything she thought she knew crumbles and rebuilds in the space of a heartbeat. She can barely form words. You made me believe. In truth, he finishes. I saw you at court functions, saw how they treated you, and I couldn't bear that someone so beautiful felt invisible. The noble ladies watch, like vultures, waiting for the explosion, the dramatic collapse of their impossible love. But Isabella, she does something no one expects. She reaches for courage she's never had and grabs it tight. You saw me, she whispers. Wonder, replacing shock. Even then, you saw me. Because here's what Margaret didn't understand about her sister's heart. It doesn't break from the truth. It breaks from lie. And Thomas? He told her the truth. Finally, completely. I loved you, he says, before I knew your name. Before I knew you'd never be mine to love. The crowd expected scandal, drama, destruction. Instead, they're witnessing something rare, something beautiful. Love choosing itself. Despite obstacles, despite judgment, despite everything that says it shouldn't exist. But Margaret, she has one more arrow in her quiver. How romantic, she sneers. But tell her, Thomas, about your debt, about what you owe our family. The color drains from Thomas's face. Because that secret, it changes everything. What debt? Isabella asks. But her voice, it's stronger now, ready for truth, whatever the cost. And Thomas, he looks at her, with such love, such regret. My family, he begins, once served yours. We were dismissed, in disgrace. Your father claimed we stole from him. The lie that destroyed his first chance at love, that drove Margaret to despair, that branded him, the criminal. But you didn't, Isabella says. Not a question, a statement, because she knows. His character, his honor. No, he confirms. But proving innocence and being believed, Those are different things. The debt isn't money, it's justice. Recognition, the right to love without shame. And suddenly, Isabella understands. Why did he hide? Why did he use another name? Why loving her feels like revolution? So you see, Margaret concludes triumphantly. This match is impossible, scandalous, doomed. But Isabella, she's done letting others define her possibilities. The only thing impossible, she says, voice ringing like bells, is continuing to live as someone I'm not. And then, she does something that stops every heart present. She takes Thomas's hand. Publicly. Boldly. Without apology. If loving him makes me scandalous, she declares, then scandalous is who I choose to be. The gasps, the whispers, the shock. It all fades into background noise. Because at this moment, two people are choosing each other. Truth, love, over everything else. But Margaret's eyes, they burn with rage. Because her plan backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying their love, she made it stronger, more intentional, more unstoppable. Have you ever had to choose between safety and love? Share below, because what happens next will show you the power of choosing courageously. With you, I do not pretend, Thomas whispers. And Isabella finally understands what home feels like. But their greatest test, it's still coming. Everything you thought you knew was wrong. And I'm about to break your heart before I heal it completely. Because the truth, it's more devastating and more beautiful than anything you imagined. Picture Thomas and Isabella, finally honest, finally hopeful, building something real on the foundation of shared truth. But Margaret, she's not finished destroying them. She's been watching, waiting, and now she strikes with precision. Tell me, dear Thomas, she says, voice dripping poison. Does Isabella know about your wife? Isabella turns, confusion clouding her features. Your wife? Thomas goes pale, because the secret he's carried is about to shatter everything. Margaret, he begins. His first wife. The woman who chose death over disgrace. But Margaret Whitmore, she twists the knife deeper. Oh, not just any wife, she continues. Our Margaret, our sister. The silence. It's deafening. Isabella staggers, like she's been struck, because it's impossible, just became reality. Your sister, she whispers, looking between them, trying to understand how love became betrayal. And Thomas? He breaks, completely. Finally. She loved me, he says, voice raw with pain. And I loved her. But your family, they destroyed us. The story pours out, like blood from a wound. Margaret Whitmore, the middle sister, beautiful, beloved, secret rebel who fell in love with a peasant. She met Thomas at a village festival, saw past his station to his heart. They exchanged letters, made promises, dreamed of impossible futures. But when her family discovered the relationship, they gave her a choice, Thomas continues. Marry the nobleman they'd chosen, or watch them destroy me. Publicly. Completely. Isabella's world tilts again. Because she remembers that Margaret, the sister who died of mysterious illness, she chose you. Isabella breathes. Understanding dawn, like a horrible sunrise. She chose love, Thomas confirms, and it killed her. Because Margaret Whitmore couldn't bear living as a nobleman's wife, couldn't survive betraying her heart. So she faded, stopped eating, stopped hoping, let grief consume her. I wasn't enough, Thomas whispers. Couldn't protect her, couldn't save her from your family's cruelty. And Isabella? She's seeing everything clearly. For the first time, the debt isn't financial. It's blood. Justice for a sister, destroyed by noble pride. Her family killed his wife, her sister, through sheer, suffocating expectation. But Margaret Whitmore, she's just getting started. So you see, she says, satisfaction dripping from every word. He's using you to get revenge, to hurt us, through you. The accusation lands like a blade between ribs. Isabella looks at Thomas, searching his face, looking for truth in the wreckage of revelation. Is that true? She asks. Voice small, broken. And Thomas? He could lie, could protect them both, but he's learned that lies destroy everything. At first, he admits, yes, I thought, if I could make them care about you, then break your heart, it would be justice. The words, each one a small death. But then, he continues, I met you, really met you, and revenge became impossible. Why? Isabella whispers. Because I fell in love, he says simply, with your courage, your kindness, your incredible, stubborn hope. He steps closer, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. You're not her replacement, he says fiercely. You're not revenge. You're everything I never thought to hope for. But Isabella, she's drowning in revelation, in betrayal, in the cruel mathematics of love and loss. Has your heart ever broken in one sentence? Share below, because what she says next will shatter you. So it was you, she breathes. All along, the letters, the love, the lie. Not lies, Thomas insists. I meant every word, but you meant them for revenge. I meant them for healing. The distinction matters. But does it matter enough? Isabella turns away, can't bear looking at him, at the face she's learned to trust, to love. I need, she starts. But I can't finish, because what does she need? Air, space, time, to rebuild her understanding of everything. Time, Thomas says gently. You need time, and that kindness, that understanding, it almost breaks her completely. Because even now, even in her anger, he sees her clearly, knows what she needs. Before she does, Margaret Whitmore watches, with satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Love destroyed. Order restored. But she's underestimated something crucial about both of them. Isabella may be shattered, but she's not broken. Not anymore. And Thomas, he's learned that love requires courage, not just to find it, but to fight for it. That night, they separate. He returns to Fields. She walks aimlessly through village streets, both drowning in the complexity of truth. Because love isn't simple when it carries history, when it's built on graves of previous dreams. Isabella finds herself at Margaret's burial site, her sister, Thomas's first love. What would you want? She whispers to the headstone. What would bring you peace? And in the silence, she hears something, not words, but understanding. Margaret chose love over everything, and died, still choosing it. Would she want that same love to die with her? Or would she want it to heal, to grow, to prove that love wins? Meanwhile, Thomas sits in his empty house, surrounded by reminders of the life he almost built, the happiness he almost claimed. I'm sorry, he tells Margaret's memory. I thought loving her would honor you. But maybe it just dishonors us all. But grief has taught him something, that love isn't finite, that honoring the dead doesn't require rejecting the living. Margaret would want his happiness, his healing, his chance at love without tragedy. Dawn breaks over two broken people, both carrying pieces of shattered dreams. But broken things can be beautiful, can be repaired with gold in the cracks. The question isn't whether they can forgive. It's whether they can choose love over safety, truth over comfort, each other over everything else. Have you ever discovered a truth that undid your whole life? Because what happens next will show you that sometimes destruction is just preparation for rebuilding. Everything is stronger. Everything is more honest. Everything else, beautiful. Are you ready to watch them choose? Because the choice they make will restore your faith in love itself. The words that change everything forever are about to be spoken. Finally, the words he never dared to speak. If you believe people can change, this is your moment. Because what Thomas and Isabella do next will give you actual chills. They isolate for 3 days, both drowning in despair, both convinced that love isn't worth the cost. But here's what I love about broken hearts. They force decisions, clarifying choices between who you've been and who you choose to become. Isabella stands before her mirror, the same mirror where she once whispered, I am more than this, aren't I? Now she knows the answer. I am enough, she says clearly. No question. Statement. Truth. Because Thomas taught her to see herself clearly, and that gift, it doesn't disappear with betrayal. Meanwhile, Thomas visits Margaret's grave, one last time. I loved you, he tells the headstone. But loving her doesn't diminish that. It honors it. Because Margaret chose love, despite the consequences, and honoring her memory means choosing it again. Both are discovering something beautiful. Self-worth, independent of others' approval. Love as strength, not weakness. And that discovery, it changes everything. Isabella makes her first brave choice. She walks to the village square, where gossip lives, where judgment thrives, and she speaks her truth. You want to know about the noble and the peasant? Her voice carries across the square. Strong, clear, unashamed. Here's what I know. He saw me when I was invisible. Valued me when I felt worthless. Loved me when I couldn't love myself. The crowd murmurs, unsure whether to admire or condemn. You think love should follow bloodlines? That worth comes from titles? She laughs, and it's not bitter, it's free. I've lived that life, starved, in golden cages. And I choose this. I baked gardens I tend. Love I earned through being myself. The villagers, they're listening. Really listening. Because authenticity has power. But Thomas, he's making his own choice. His own declaration of war. He rides to the Whitmore estate, past guards, through gates, into the heart of enemy territory. And when he stands before Isabella's father, his voice doesn't waver. Lord Whitmore, he begins, I've come to claim what's mine. The nobleman laughs until he sees Thomas's face. See the determination burning there. Your daughter, Thomas continues, chose me, not for my land, not for my status, for who I am, when everything else is stripped away. You have nothing, Lord Whitmore sneers. I have everything, Thomas corrects. I have her heart, her respect, her trust, that I'll protect what matters most. And then, he does something that shocks everyone. He kneels, not in submission. In a proposal. I'm asking, he says clearly, for your blessing, not because I need it, but because she deserves it. The courage to humble himself, not from weakness, but from love. Lord Whitmore stares, speechless, because this peasant just taught him something about honor. But the real surprise comes from behind them. Father, Isabella's voice rings through the hall. You'll give it. She followed him. Of course she did, because they're stronger together. Isabella, her father begins. No, she interrupts. I've listened to your judgment my entire life. Now, you'll listen to mine. She moves to Thomas's side and kneels with him. Equal partners, united front. This man, she says, voice steady, taught me to love myself, to see worth beyond mirrors and scales and social climbing. She takes Thomas's hand, publicly, boldly. If you want me, in your family, he comes too. If you can't accept him, then you've lost us both. The ultimatum hangs in expensive air. But here's what's beautiful. She's not asking for approval. She's stating, turn, love me as I am, or lose me completely. Lord Whitmore looks between them, sees something he never expected. Dignity, partnership, genuine happiness. His daughter, radiant with self-worth. Strong in ways titles never taught. The debt, he begins weakly. There is no debt, Thomas says firmly. There was injustice, cruelty, but we're choosing forgiveness over revenge. Margaret's death honors love, Isabella finishes, by letting it grow instead of die with her. The silence stretches, pregnant with possibility. Finally, Lord Whitmore nods. Slowly, reluctantly, but genuine. If this is what makes you strong, he says to Isabella, then I accept. The words, they're not enthusiasm, but they're enough. Because sometimes, acceptance is the first step toward love. Thomas and Isabella rise together, hand in hand, heart to heart. They've done it, claimed their right to choose each other. But the real victory is not social acceptance. It's self-acceptance. The radical notion that their love needs no permission but their own. If redemption stories move you, smash that like button now. Because what happens next will make you believe in fairy tales again. They walk from that grand hall, out into sunlight, into a future they'll build together. And behind them, even Margaret Whitmore watches with something like respect. Because they did what she couldn't. Fought for love, and won. The villagers cheer as they pass. Because authentic happiness is infectious. You are everything, Thomas whispers. And Isabella believes him. Finally, but their greatest adventure? It's just beginning. Next, the ending that will make you cry. Happy tears. Sometimes, love doesn't just find us. It creates us. 6 months later, picture this scene. A wedding in the village square. Not grand, not noble, but real. Isabella, radiant in simple white. Not because she's perfect, but because she's perfectly herself. Thomas, beaming with peace. Finally home, in his own heart. The villagers, they've gathered to celebrate, because this love lifted their entire community, showed them that worth comes from character. Even Lord Whitmore stands witness, learning slowly to value daughter over status. But Margaret Whitmore, she's notably absent because some people can't bear others' happiness. And that's perfectly fine. Isabella speaks her vows with voice that carries across the square. Strong, clear, certain. I choose you, not because you complete me, but because you see me completely. Thomas responds with words that heal old wounds. I choose you, not to replace what I lost, but to build what we'll find together. Their kiss, it's tender, grateful, full of promises. They'll actually keep. The feast, it's simple. Bread they baked, wine they shared, joy they earned. But here's what makes me cry, happy tears. Watch Isabella teaching the baker's daughter to read. See how naturally she nurtures. Watch Thomas planning expansion of village school. See how leadership flows from service. They're not just married, they're partnered. In purpose, in growth, in love, that builds things. Their home, it's small, but welcoming, filled with laughter, learning, the sound of people becoming their best selves. And late at night, when they whisper in darkness, we are enough, Thomas adds. And they are. Sometimes, the greatest victories are quiet ones, personal ones. The choice to love yourself enough to accept love from others. Are you crying? Because I am. Watching someone learn to see their own worth through loving eyes. It never gets old. Subscribe for more stories where love transforms the impossible, where people become who they're meant to be. Share this with someone who feels unseen, who needs to remember that they're enough, that love is always possible. Because beautiful souls like you understand that the best love stories aren't about finding someone, they're about finding yourself worthy of love. Next week, another story of becoming, another journey from broken to beautiful. I am enough.